episode 53, if I'm correct. 53 is a lot, man. I think we've been doing this for like 6 months or so now.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Since like right after Battlefield, right? Since right after Korea.
No, yeah, for sure. And man, it's just moving along, I guess. I was looking at the other day at all the guests that we've had, and
Had a lot.
yeah, we've had a lot of guests, man. Like coming on here for like an hour and just talking shit, and I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'll listen to the podcast and I'll cringe at the way I'm talking sometimes because I'll say that I'll be saying things like you know what I mean, and you know and like and it's just, I guess you got to get better at that shit to make the podcast better.
Yeah, I believe so too. Because I think with each podcast we've gotten better and better, but obviously we still have a lot of room for improvement. But I remember thinking about like the first like 10 or so. They were just so bad, and like the audio, and I didn't have a microphone, and it was just like a catastrophe. I think we're getting better.
Yeah, put the mic like in the center, so if you speak down, yeah, like that. If you lean back, it will still catch it. It's all good.
Yeah.
But hey, I was the thing that I want to talk to you about is I was watching this thing, Chael Sonnen. You know the Chael Sonnen makes those videos.
Yeah, I've been watching them actually.
Yeah, dude, those videos I like.
Good because Chael's like, in my opinion, like first and foremost, he's a showman, you know. But I watched one on my way back from China the other day, and it was talking about like people ask him all the time the best way to get into the UFC, and he like told the story. It was like 6 or 7 minute long video, but I watched the whole thing, and it was accurate. You know, I think like a lot of the videos that he's done recently have been like pretty accurate. You know, like Chael's a smart guy. He's definitely a showman. He's a good fighter. But he's a smart, like he's an intellectual person, and I like listening to him.
Very articulate. Like he knows how to tell the story. He can break things down and give you those little details. And I don't really, like I've always told people, I don't really watch too much MMA stuff except for fights. But I've been watching them, like the Chael ones, and especially the ones where he's talking about wrestling. And telling stories about the fighters, and like especially the one with when he talks about Matt Lindland. Have you seen that one?
I don't know if I don't think I saw that one. I saw the one that it was like Keith Sims, Randy Couture, Matt Hume, like all in one room, like back in the day. And it was like, I guess when Randy was fighting in Pride, and it was, you could just tell like Heath Sims like doesn't, like, I know Heath, he's a really good guy. And you know, he's a great wrestler. He was on the Greco Olympian and stuff, but it was like right before he started fighting or even coaching, like he had no idea what he was doing. It was just so raw, you know. And even Randy, like they were warming up in the back room, and him and who, can't remember who he was with, but it was just like so raw. Like they were all so young and so like, you know, just so long ago. But he told the story and like told everyone's credentials and whatnot. And man, it was a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah, I haven't seen that video because Chael, he makes a lot of videos, but the one that I watched was about how Matt Lindland kind of punked the best wrestler in the world, or considered the best wrestler in the world, even though he lost to them. I forgot his name. I think it was some Cuban dude, but
I'm gonna try to find it now.
Yeah, but it was so good the way he told it and how the story ended with
he's such a good storyteller.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up is because I was watching one about how he explained his worst weight cut, where he cut like 30-something pounds and 34 pounds in like 10 days or something like that.
That's not surprising, man. He's like, especially now, like weight cutting's not like it used to be, you know? Like it's still bad. Obviously there's still people that are like cutting a lot of weight and like, but I think like back in his day of like wrestling, like well before my era of like college wrestling, like it was really bad. Like outside of fighting and stuff, like I've heard like ridiculous stories about like, you know, old heads like in wrestling and college wrestling Division I that, you know, just did ridiculous weight cuts. So there's like a lot of stories. So I'm sure his stories were very, very interesting.
Yeah, because he was talking about, not even in his wrestling days, he was talking about in his UFC days before like the Mike Dolces and what's your boy's name?
George Lockhart.
Yeah, George Lockhart, and those guys came along. And he was like boys with Mike Dolce. He trained with him, but he didn't know that Mike Dolce was, you know, like in that weight cutting, and he's so knowledgeable about that. He didn't know that. So it was before all that. It was before like people were taking those baths to cut weight. So he was explaining how he was sitting in the sauna and basically starving himself to make the weight. And the way he detailed it was so incredible. So that's the reason why I bring that up, is because I want to ask you about your worst weight cut. You tell me a story about that, because you've been cutting weight.
I know exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I've been cutting weight, man, since I was like I guess cutting weight for me, whether it's like 2 pounds or 25, 30 pounds, it all sucks. Obviously, the more you cut, the more it sucks. But yeah, like I remember losing weight as a kid. Like I've got stories about, like, I remember my dad getting mad because this guy, my brother, like I wrestled in the Pontiac Silverdome. I was in 6th grade. My brother was in 4th grade or 3rd or 4th grade. And I made weight easy. Like I think I cut like 1.5 pounds, but I wore like plastics in 6th grade. And this isn't my worst weight cut. This is just a funny story. Not a funny story, but to show
you're wearing plastics.
Yeah, but listen to this.
Grade?
My little brother, who you've met, you know him.
Yeah.
He's like, cutting weight is like a joke, and he jokes with all the fighters about it now because he's terrible at cutting weight. He could never do it. I could go on for stories because he didn't really cut weight in high school. He tried once, didn't work. He tried it in college once, and he started having a kick-ass year, and then he just completely didn't make it, and like had to stop, and he went out. It was just a catastrophe. But anyways, he got down within like, he was like 9/10 of a pound over when we checked the weight at the Silverdome. We went to the hotel. He was in the sauna, like in the bath. We put the hot shower on, and he was like running in the plastics. Meanwhile, he's in 3rd grade or 4th grade, whatever it was. And he got down within like 1/10 of a pound of making it. Like he was right there. He was 0.1 over. And he drank an RC Cola in the bathroom. I remember coming in and his weight had gone up like almost a pound or like 0.7, whatever it was. I was like, how'd your weight go up? Like, and this is a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember. But he basically was like, tried to lie to me. But I saw the RC Cola in the bathroom. And I was like, you drank it. So then we had him running up and down the hallways. And then this guy that we were with, his son and him, that took us to the tournament, because I think my dad was working that weekend and couldn't get off. So he took us up to Michigan from North Carolina. And the guy gave my brother a diuretic to make him piss. And my dad, like my brother ended up making weight. The scale was like teetering, like on weight, off weight. And the guy was just like, get off the scale. I remember him saying, get off the scale, son. And just like checked his name, and he made weight. But I told my dad, and my dad was so angry. Like he ended up having like some intense words with the guys. Like the kids, you know, you could have put him up a weight class. He doesn't need to cut that much weight. He's a kid. So anyways, but no, that was just a funny story. That's worst weight cut.
Up, man. Like
it's ridiculous.
Someone else's dad gave your brother a
I remember. And this guy's kid was like super intense. Like they were from Ohio, which is a strong wrestling state. Yeah. And coming down as a kid, he was like already good, you know, but as he got older, like, you know, other kids caught up to him, and he wasn't the little animal that everyone thought he was. But anyways, it's a funny story. My worst weight cut was my junior year of college. I redshirted that year. So like I was just competing in open tournaments. I wasn't actually wrestling like competitively for the school. So you know about red shirts and all that, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So that was my redshirt year, was my junior year. Most guys do it like their freshman year or something. And there was this kid, his name was Ian, AKA we called him the Rat. He was from Delaware. He was like a really good wrestler. It was his freshman year, and he was like a big prospect coming out of Delaware. Ian Mosier. So if you're listening, I'm talking about you. No, he's a really good wrestler.
We'll have to tag him on this.
Yeah, I don't even think he has Facebook. He's one of those guys. He probably doesn't even listen to music.
He's off the grid.
Yeah, he's off the grid. His wife's on the grid. He's off the grid. Anyways, so my coach is Stutz. He's the coach now at University of Buffalo, and my other assistant coach, Carl, he was the coach of Columbia University, like after he left where I went to school at Bloomsburg. And like Stutz messaged me and was like, hey, big dog, we're going to send you out to the Dave Schultz Open at the U.S. Olympic Training Center. And this is an international tournament where like Azerbaijan, Russia, like every country, like big wrestling country sends people to wrestle in this tournament. And I was wrestling, I believe at that time, I think 141. Yeah, I think 141 because the next year I was too big for it and I went up. And it was hard for me to make 141 where I thought it was. But like I cut like – I was coming into the season, I was like 162 pounds. And I would cut down and my weight class was 141. So – all the open tournaments, I was wrestling 141. But they got the idea, they wanted me to wrestle 132 and a half. So it was like a little more than 61 kilos, but it was plus 2 kilos. So it was like 136, I think. So 132, it was like 136, I think is what it was. And I remember like, I was like, oh, like I can't make that. And they were like, nah, you can do it. Like, you need to like, and I just told him like after the tournament, like after I made weight and everything, I was just like, yo, I'm not stupid. You guys sent me out there with like our hot freshman prospect to like, cause the kid can't even get to the airport by himself. That's why I'm being sent there as like a babysitter. But anyways, I did this like diet. I got my weight down. I left school at like 141. Like I had like done this cleanse, which I really never did. And I was like dieting hard, basically getting ready to start cutting weight and like starving myself. And I did the last workout in the plastics at school and I was 141. And then, so I still had like 5 pounds to go, you know? And I was like pretty sucked out. And then I flew to Colorado to the Olympic Training Center. And the first day I got there, I checked my weight. I was back up to like 144 and a half, I think. 145, something like that. 144, 145. And just remember being like, fuck. Like, because I was already cutting weight. Like, I was only like 3 pounds over what I usually made. So I was 144, 145. And I remember I was just like, all right, you know, weigh-ins are tomorrow. And the guy that I was staying with was like somebody that I looked up to that I lived with before, but he was like competing internationally and whatnot. And he was like, yo, just like lose a little bit tonight, go tomorrow and cut the rest. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I just remember getting on the treadmill and I was just like, I'm not working out again tomorrow. And I just like put the plastics on, like Albaline, and I got down to like within 2 pounds of what I had to weigh in at. And I calculated in my head that I would sleep at night, wake up the next day, and during the day I would float. So I'd end up floating like, I think I was like 1.5 pounds over after I was done cutting weight. But I remember like it was like 45 minutes on the treadmill. Then I went to this, then I went to that. And it was like 2 hours and I got down within like 1.5 pounds, which was like, now I look back on it, it was just like really stupid because like in college, high school, I didn't know how to cut weight. College, I thought I knew how to cut weight, but now I know that I was completely wrong in both areas. But I just remember like, it was like running, it was terrible. And like the Olympic team came in, the volleyball girls, and I was like, oh yeah, like they're all hot and, you know, real fit and whatnot. So I was still running like I had a bunch of energy. And then I just went back to the room at like 6:30 at night and I was just like miserable, just cotton mouth, making weight. And literally like my face the next morning, my face had broken out. I had staph that was going up my vein, and I went before weigh-ins and I got they sent me to where I asked somebody and they sent me to the trainer's room and they prescribed me medicine for staph. Like it was literally like I woke up and then within a couple hours it had gone up my vein. Like I could see it traveling up and they're like, oh, it's staph. So they gave me, I think I got it from the sauna, like cutting weight, probably with like the European guys or something. But it was terrible. Like I remember I thought I was bad, like, because my face had broken out. Because I had acne, like, pretty bad in the end of high school and beginning of college. But my face had broken out. My cheeks were sunken in. And then I saw Kendall Cross. which is funny, who's the 1996 Olympic champion in Atlanta. Do you know Kendall Cross?
No.
He was like he was a wrestling great. He wrestled at Oklahoma State. He's a legend in the sport. And I saw him, and he hadn't wrestled in a while. I think it had been a while, and he had a lot of problems and stuff. And but it was his tournament. He was like making a comeback, and I just remember, like, this is funny, like, side story. I remember my coach calling me, and he was like, "Hey, you made weight, big dog. Everything good?" I was like, "Yeah, stuff's always good." I was like, "Hey, I got and I said it like dead serious. And I was like, "Hey, I got Kendall first round." And he's like, "Who?" He was like, "The brackets are out?" And I was like, "Yeah, the brackets are out." I was like, "I got Kendall." He's like, "Kendall who?" I was like, "Kendall Cross." And he's like, "Ah." I was like, "What's the game plan?" He was like, "Ha! Run, big dog. Put your track shoes on. Run." And I just started laughing because, like, he's, like, usually, like, dead serious. But it was just, like, just made me laugh, bro. It was because literally, like, the first match, I drove the, like, Olympic champion from, you know, from 2006 or 2 Olympics before. And I remember I, like, snapped him down into a front headlock and went behind him and thought I had scored. And then the next thing I knew, I was like, oh, my back, and the match was over. It was terrible. But anyways, yeah, that was my worst weight cutting story. Just because my face was like, it was like a weight class below usually what I wrestled, and my face was broken out, and, like, it was just, I looked like a sack of sport. Like, it was terrible. A bag of dicks is what I looked like.
Like, I guess, you know, like, I talked to some people about this, and, you know, people think, like, if you're a fighter, you're kind of, like, just dumb, and you just fucking pound people's faces in and shit like that. But when you hear stories about,
from the truth.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you hear stories about, you know, cutting weight, that's mental, I think, more than anything, isn't it? Like, you gotta fight mentally.
Look, for me, fighting is, like, especially, like, when I first started doing it, you know, it was something new. Like, I remember when the year before before I was my last year, my 5th year of wrestling, which was, like, the best year I had in wrestling. It was, like, I kind of contributed to because I didn't have any stress. I was just like, you know what? I'm done with this in 6 months or 9 months. Like, I'm done with wrestling. Like, I know what I want to do. I knew that I thought before when I watched, like, the UFC, yeah, I want to be a fighter like everybody else. But I'd never done it. I never hit pads. I never sparred. The closest I did that was sparring in karate, you know? But, like, the summer before my last year, I did go to an MMA gym and I cross-trained, and, like, I really enjoyed it. And it made it fun. And when I would have to cut weight my senior year for wrestling, I would go, like, hit the bag because I got heavy, like, or bag gloves for Christmas. And like, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd only done it a little bit. You know, I'd done a little jiu-jitsu, a little bit of Muay Thai, and seen an MMA fight live. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I just made my mind up. And it was just, like, something fresh for me, you know? It was something new. But, like, for me, it's still fun. Like, I love coaching, and I enjoy competing. I like fighting. Yeah, it's stressful, but I still like fighting. And I love being around it because it's very similar to wrestling, but at the same time, it's so much easier than wrestling. Like, for me, wrestling in college, and I think any wrestler that's wrestled at the highest level will tell you, like, not only are you an athlete in college, but you wake up at 6:30, you train preseason, season, postseason, especially if you're on scholarship at any university, your ass is there 10, 11 months out of the year, you know, because you're essentially getting paid to do it. And you're competitive. You don't want to lose your spot, but it's just a grind. Not only going to school, like practice and then school and then going to practice again and then studying at night or homework or whatever it is, you know, it's just constant. And then you have to go cut weight. So you do your homework, then you're going to cut weight because you're making weight at least once between the months of November and March. If you make it to the national tournament, you're making weight at least once a week for that whole time almost, if not twice a week. Because a lot of times you'll wrestle a dual meet on Tuesday against another university. Then you'll go back, you'll have or Monday maybe, you'll have Sunday off, Tuesday off, and then you wrestle Wednesday and Thursday. You leave wherever you're going on Friday. You make weight Saturday morning and you wrestle Saturday. So it could be a lot of times you're weighing in twice a week.
Damn, that must be so stressful on your body.
So stressful. Like, making weight for a fight is like, yeah, it sucks. It's not fun, you know, but but it is what it is. It's not like it's once every however many months. Like if you're an active fighter, it's 4 times a year, 5 times a year max on a low-level show or whatever. And the few like Donald Cerrone, you fight 4 or 5 times in a year. But I mean, everyone's different. But even let's say it was 6 times you fought in 1 year and you had to make weight. That's still an average of how many times, every couple of months. That's not twice a week. Like, that sucks. And let alone you have to go to school and all this other shit on top of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that play into being an athlete, especially a scholarship athlete at a university,
it's
right?
a big deal, man. It's when you are, especially at Division I level, like when you're wrestling in college, and every sport's like that, like if you're a scholarship athlete and you get scholarship dollars, like you're there at least 10 months out of the year. Like I'd be there for the school year. May would come, I believe, is when we'd get out of school. I'd go home for maybe 3 weeks, and then I'd be back training, and then we'd have summer camps that would last a month long. Like all the athletes would have to be there. I'd stay after that, and then I'd go home for maybe 3 weeks at the end of the summer before coming back for school. So it's like, I remember my coach calling me one time because I was like trying to be cheeky and like take extra time and like keep working and stuff. And my coach called me and was like, "Nah, big dog, it's time to get back. Like, you need to get training. Like, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I was doing building like docks and stuff near the beach. Like, I was doing like manual labor. I mean, it wasn't like too bad, but it was still like, manual labor." And I was like, "And I'm training every day. Like, I go lift and I go wrestle 3-4 times a week." And he was like, "Nah, that's not cutting it. You need to be back up to school," which I went to school like 10 hours away from my home. He was like, "You need to come back next week." And I was just like, "Yeah, all right." And I was back the next week. So
did it ever get like, you're like, "Damn, what am I doing?" Did you ever get to that point?
Yeah, there were like many times that like, because it's funny, like my college coach, Stutz, like we stay in close contact. Like,
I see him on Twitter.
Yeah, he's on Twitter.
Yeah, he's
a hoot. But like before, because Twitter came out when I was like, I think, or it got popular when I was like my senior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I remember my brother, because my brother was a freshman when I was a senior. So he was a sophomore the next year, like after I graduated. And that's when Snapchat and like Twitter started getting big. Instagram wasn't around then, but like Twitter, like, and he'd be like, "You need to stop fucking tweeting so much." Like, he'd get pissed. Like if someone lost, he'd be like, "You know what? You lost because you started tweeting too goddamn much," and would like get mad. But now he's like all over Twitter, lighting it up, and like then he'll message my brother and I, or we'll call him, and he'll be like, "Oh, these fucking guys these days, like I'm soft compared to how I was with you guys." Like, we have a good relationship, and we still talk to him quite a bit and give him shit and stuff. And he's just a hoot, man. It's funny, like, just like how he is now compared to how he was, because I do think he's like changed and stuff. But like, we'll just like, I'll tweet him sometimes and get him going. I'll be like, "Man, it's sad that you got guys like all over Twitter and social media, like, doing this and doing that. They should be training and keeping their mouth shut, and they don't just get going." And like, it's so funny.
But I think that having Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that is good for the athletes, because they could get exposure.
Yeah, it's great.
Before they move on to something, bigger, like fighting or whatever. Like,
yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah. I was thinking about one of the wrestlers that I think he trains at Jackson's, and he's like highly touted, but every time I've seen him fight, he's lost. Like, every chance. Philip Hawes.
For what promotion?
For the UFC. He was on the Tough season. He lost.
What
I remember, like, they were building him up, and then he was on that Tuesday night contender series, and he lost that too.
I need to get
Is Philip Hawes? I think he's known as a wrestler.
How is it? 2 S's?
No, it's 1 S, I think.
Philip Hawes.
Yeah. HAW.
Okay. Philip Hawes, yes. Megatron?
I don't even know what his nickname is, but
was he in WSOF?
I think
Black guy or white guy?
Black guy.
Okay, yeah, I got him up. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not too familiar.
Do you know who he is? From what I heard, that they're always talking about how good he is, but every time I, seen him, it's just he just get beat. And I heard that he's like a great wrestler, but going back to the wrestling stuff, like
he's 4-2.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's new.
Yeah, he's new. He's a new guy.
Okay.
Going back to the wrestling, who are the guys? Like you mentioned that name earlier, Kendall Cross. I've never even heard of that guy, but you say he's a legend of the sport. Like, who are some other legends that you can, break, you can educate somebody like me, from wrestling from your days?
There's a lot of greats, but when I wrestled in college for MMA, Johnny Hendricks was during the same time as me. But these guys are like much higher level than what I was. Like my senior year, I went to the national tournament, and Lance Palmer beat me my first match, actually, of the national tournament. But like Johnny Hendricks, Ben Askren, Tyrone Woodley was, I think Tyrone Woodley, when I was younger in college, like a freshman, sophomore, he was a little bit older during that time. Like those were the guys that stand out to me, that were Mike Chandler. You met my friend Mike, or Matt Moley, right?
Yeah.
When you were here. Yeah. So Matt wrestled Chandler in the All-American round, I believe, for 5th and 6th, I think, or maybe 3rd and 4th. I can't remember, in the All-American round. And Chandler beat Matt. Like, Matt was really good, and obviously Mike was really good as well. But those are guys that were like during my era that are fighting MMA now, that were really good. Derek Brunson, who's he was Division II, we were Division I, but he was a freak athlete. Like, we grew up wrestling together. I was a sophomore, I believe, in high school. He was a senior in high school. His first year ever wrestling, got 3rd place in the tournament. The next year, went to a Division II school in North Carolina, All-American. Like, that's insane to me. Not only to place your first year ever wrestling in your entire life, and then All-American in college in any division after that is ridiculous. He's by far the best athlete I've ever seen. Like, we still stay in pretty close contact, but he wrestled at the same time. Those are like people that you would know that are fighting now that, wrestled during the same time as I did.
That's a crazy list of names right there. Tyrone Woodley, Johnny Hendricks, both UFC champions. Chandler, Bellator champion, who could, to be honest with you.
Frankie Edgar. I wrestled Frankie Edgar when I think he was a senior when I was a freshman, or maybe he was a junior when I was a freshman. I can't remember. But he beat me, and we almost got in a fight. He beat me like 8-2. It was at the East Stroudsburg Open. If you ask Johnny or Frankie who I was, he probably has no idea. But he's like, I like him, like, fighting, man. He's like, I love his style. He's a nice guy. He's just like, he's a good dude, But he beat me like 8-2 or something like that. But I remember, like, I was trying to be like, even though I was getting beat, I was trying to be like tough and like still. Like, I was going after him the whole time, but I can't remember what happened because it's so long ago. But like, I think I might have been a prick and like shoulder checked him or something, and then like something minor happened. And again, it's been so long, like I don't remember it. But I remember like 1 or 2 years later, like seeing him on the on like some show on MTV about making it to the UFC or something. I was just thinking to myself, that guy would have kicked the shit out of me probably. Like, if he had been training at that point, he probably would have beat the shit out of me. But that's one that I should have forgotten. But he's definitely, out of all those guys, one of the best for sure.
Yeah, man. Wrestling is just
it's a small MMA. It's extremely tough, but especially at that level, it's a very small community or small brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's like, and a lot of those guys, like, I don't personally know Tyrone Woodley. I know Ben enough to say like hello to him. We have a mutual friend that used to help train Brian Stann in wrestling, and he's like one of my really good friends. He's probably the best fighter that never actually fought. Like, the things that guy could do were insane. His name is Raymond Jordan. But But yeah, but like the other guys, like a lot of them, I don't know. I'm good friends with Derek Brunson. Dennis Bermudez, that's one I shouldn't have forgot. We were on the same team. Dennis, he was a freshman, I was a sophomore. Like Dennis and I were very good friends, and we still talk occasionally. But he went to my university, and yeah. So they're like wrestling is a small community, you know. There's not a lot of wrestlers, especially at that level. And then to go in MMA, it's a pretty tight knit. You know, everyone knows of everyone, or like respects them or whatever.
Well, Dennis Bermudez. Any funny stories with Dennis?
Where should I start? As a matter of fact, I've never even thought about it. We'll have to get Dennis on. I'll get Dennis on soon.
Yeah.
Because I've never even I don't know why it hasn't dawned on me because I'm friends with him to get him on, but we will. Here's a funny story about Dennis Bermudez. It's a PG one, so because there's a lot of other ones. But Dennis was always he was just such an upbeat guy all the time. Like from his visit when he came to visit, I remember him. He was young and trying to fit in with all the guys. And he was a cool dude. Like we all liked him. He was from New York, and because I went to school in Pennsylvania, so it was like 2.5, 3 hours from New York City, but far away from where he was from. And but also it was an hour and a half from Penn State, from State College. And it was small town, very, very small town. There was 12,000 people total. And out of those 12,000, give or take, 9.5, 10,000 of them, probably 9,000 of them were students.
Damn.
So it was a very, very small town. We're talking about 45 minutes from the Pocono Mountains and just in the middle of nowhere. And Dennis, and I don't remember all the guys that he were with, but so you got the whole campus that goes down the hill, and then the student housing, and then you go up this hill, and at the top is the field house where the basketball, the football field is, the wrestling, everything. All the sports are there. They had a little miniature cafeteria and stuff. And I don't remember everything exactly, but somehow Dennis and some of these other guys got this bright idea to get, I believe it was airsoft guns. And they waited for everything to close down after practice, after study hall, everything. And they I can't remember if they broke into the field house or if they just if it was unlocked or they had some way to jimmy the door open, but they just had an all out airsoft war inside of the field house. And I remember them getting caught. And then the next day, Stutz, I remember I can't remember if I was hey, what's wrong? Or if he just berated the team as one, but he was just fucking guys, idiots, just think you can fucking come do what you want. And he just had a complete meltdown. He was I got fucking guys playing airsoft, fucking G.I. Joe up in the field house, and was just giving it to everybody. It was so funny. I think he might have told me and then reamed everybody out as a team, or I can't remember. I talked to him afterwards, but it was quite funny. It wasn't funny at the time because he was just laying into everyone. But I just remember Dennis just stupid look on his face, laughing about it. But Dennis was always the most upbeat, just center of attention, just a really, really genuinely good person. Yeah, he's quite a character, that is for sure. And he was the menace in college as well during wrestling as well. That was his nickname.
Yeah, he seems like it, with some of the interviews that he does, and I think he's been on a few of those countdowns.
Yeah,
where it shows him training and what he does.
Man,
and it seems he's one of those positive guys that are nice to everybody and stuff like that.
Dennis is a very positive guy. I haven't hung out school with. We're from up north in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and I'm from the south. So I only went back up there one time. But anyways, Dennis is a super positive guy, and he's one of the hardest workers I've ever met. He is an extremely, extremely hard worker, to the point where sometimes in practice, if you got the better of him, you had to be hey, calm down, relax. It's just he takes everything to heart. But he's a true competitor. He was a damn good wrestler, and he wrestles like he fights, man. He gives it all he's got, and he's going 100% all the time. But he's a super good guy, man. He's a hard worker. He's talented, and just a really, really nice person, and fun to be around.
Now, recently, Brian Stann, he left the UFC to get, to have a better future, I guess, for himself and his family. But I want to go back to the time where you first went to Atlanta, because that's where he had his gym, right?
Yeah, but I didn't go to his gym for a long time.
Oh, so you went somewhere
for
else?
Yeah, when I first moved to Atlanta, I got hurt too. So I first went to Atlanta. I remember the first person I got put in contact with was a guy named Jeff Bedard, who coaches at Reinhardt University in Georgia now. He was one of the best wrestlers ever from Georgia. He coached college wrestling. He fought in the WEC. I can't remember if he beat Miguel Torres or he lost. I want to say that he lost, but I can't remember. But Jeff is like an OG, like literally just missed his time in MMA of like really being like, because he's still, bro, I don't know how old, he's 40 some years old now. Like he's got a daughter my brother's age. He hangs out, like he's friends with my buddy Matt that you met, and he hangs out there. They all live in the same area. Like he's a good guy, but he's still at this age. Like he would come in and train with all of us, and he could hold his own for an older guy. But yeah, he's the first guy that I came in contact with. But he put me in contact with he was like, hey, come to my place, because he had a wrestling facility. He was like, and it was Rafael Asansao, Freddie Asansao, their brother Junior. And I'm trying to think of these guys' names. Brian Bowles was one of them.
Okay.
Remember Brian Bowles?
Yeah, WC.
Yeah, so now we're talking about people. Yeah, Brian Bowles. I want to say that the name John Kofer, I think, was on one of the Ultimate Fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I want to say. And there was another guy. Yeah, there was another guy, Steven something or something like that trained with them up in Athens, because they all lived in Athens. And Jeff lived in like Beaufort, just north of Atlanta, where I lived in Atlanta and he lived in Beaufort, but I worked in that area. So it was easy for me to go after work. And I remember the first time training with them, like I can still remember, like I was like 2-0 amateur. And I was like, I moved to Atlanta. I was like, because I'd outgrown like where I was at. Like within 6 months, I could beat everybody. And it was just like, it was time for me to move on if I wanted to progress as a fighter. And I went there, and I remember thinking, I was like, oh, I'm going to do fine with all these guys, bro. And they all tapped me out. I was just like, wow, I'm in the right place, I guess. Everyone beat the shit out of me, and it was just grappling. And then I went to like Marietta, because Atlanta's really, really spread out. So I'd train here in the morning, train over here in the afternoon. And then I went to like Marietta, and I was training with them and this kid named Byron Bloodworth, who I knew from Wilmington, North Carolina, also had 1 or 2 fights in the UFC. And like I did pretty good with everyone, I would say. Like even back then, I didn't do great, but like Rafael just kicked the living shit out of me. I remember like literally him kicking me and me almost having a bowel movement in my pants. Like to this day, Rafael's still the best guy I've ever trained with. But I still didn't know Brian Stann at that time. So about a year, I got hurt. Rafael's brother and I were grappling or sparring or something. And anyways, I blew my MCL out, and I rehabbed it, started training too early again, and blew it out again. So I was like on the shelf for like 10 months. And I found this guy named Manu, this guy that I trained with back in North Carolina. He's like, hey, man, you should check out these guys. And at this point, I was thinking about coming back to North Carolina because I had an opportunity to just coach this one kid wrestling. His dad was a doctor. And it was an option that I could possibly go back, just train and just coach this guy and not have to work in the car business, which is what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I went and met Manu, and I was just like, I met this guy. I called him, and he was like, hello. And I was like, hey, are you Manu? And he was like, yeah, who this? And I was like, this is George. I was like told by someone to give you a call about, training in Muay Thai. And he's like, okay, you come here, you do this time, da-da-da-da-da. And he like told me, and I met him. And I couldn't understand anything he said for the first 3 months. But after the first time he held pads for me, I was like, if I could understand what this guy's saying, like, I'm going to improve a lot. And he like beat the shit out of me with the pads. He was fighting Cal Clyde, a former like really high level Thai guy. And I watched the video after he fought him, and I was like, why'd you lose? He was like, what do you mean? I was like, why'd you let him beat you? And he was like, why I need to win. I'm 44 years old. I go, I get my money, I come home. I put on good show. But now I understand that I live in Thailand, like why I did that. But I met him, and he trained all these guys, but I didn't know it. Like no one really like I was friends with them, you know, at training, but I didn't like hang out with them. It's not like as time went on, I got closer with them. But I would say probably like maybe I had knee surgery, came back, had a fight or two, and maybe like a year and a half or two after being in Atlanta, I went to Roberto Travins, which is like he was a high level. He was in the UFC ages ago, and he's a really high level black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I met Brian there, but he wouldn't even remember that. I just remember him giving a lecture to some of the guys about who they have managed them. And this is like when Brian was in after WEC, was in the UFC, he was starting to make some noise. And but I didn't see him again for a while. And then I was training at Ron Carneiro, Jucal, his ATT Atlanta. And we wrestled. It was on a wrestling day. And I think I wrestled with Brian one time, and he kind of took notice because I'll say that I got the better of him that day. But that was like probably one of the last times because his wrestling really improved after a while. And but he was like a really nice guy, you know, and he spoke to me, and I obviously looked up to him. Like he had no earthly idea who I was, but obviously I knew who he was. And that group of guys, like it was like Jucal, Brian were like the leaders. And then it was Raymond Jordan, who was the kid I told you about. He wrestled with Ben Askren, and Brian hired him to train him before Bisping. Myself, Rafael Sansao, Douglas Lima, Diego Lima, both Freddie and Junior, Rafi's brothers. Warren Thompson, he fights in Glory. Manu, my coach. There was numerous other guys that I'm forgetting, and I'm sorry if anyone ever listens to this. Not that anyone is, but a lot of guys, a really good group of guys. So then, like, because everyone was kind of, this other guy, Diego Saraiva, he owns a gym there. He's a high-level black belt, fought in the UFC ages ago. But everyone, like, no one was ever, like, you know, held anybody accountable. But this was, like, everyone had their own place at night they would train, but everyone would come together in the morning. And it'd either be at ATT Atlanta at Jucal's place, at Diego's place, which was, like, kind of in the middle, or at Brian Stann's place in Alpharetta. And after a while, like, Brian was, like, kind of everyone just called him the captain because Brian is what he is, man. He's a former military guy. He expects you to be there on time. He expects you to work hard while you're there. And he was kind of like the leader, you know? And he just was like, after one time, like, because we were kind of rotating between all the gyms. And then finally he was just like, all right, look, every day, 10 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, you're going to come to my gym. And it's called the Cooler. And it's this big hockey ring. They got like 3 or 4 hockey rings in it. And then there was like a little cardio and weight room. And then he had a mat room, which you can't see my house, but it's about the whole size of my house. Like, it wasn't huge, but it was enough room for all of us. And it was usually every day, like between 6 and 12 to 14 people that would train there. And it was all high level guys. And Brian became like the leader, and it was, you know, every day for the most part, he was there all the time. We would help him. Occasionally we go to other places. If he had a meeting on that side of town, we'd just go to whoever's gym was on that side of town. But, you know, we helped everyone prepare and helped each other. And I would say Brian and Jucal were like the coaches, and Jucal's high level jiu-jitsu, and Brian's, you know, high level MMA fighter. And we had myself for wrestling, and the other guy, Raymond, who was kind of headed up the wrestling, and all these like really good fighters, you know. And Brian was like the leader. And, you know, over time he became more involved with like the Fox thing, and it was more stuff, but it was cool. Like, you know, for me, I was only like 2 professional fights at that point, maybe 3, if that. And like seeing the UFC crew come in, I remember like one time I like watched the countdown, and I was like in the crowd, like I was one of the guys like in the gym, and I was so pumped. Like, you know, it's like small things like that when you're an up and comer that you're like, holy shit, I'm on fucking, I think Spike TV at the time or whatever, maybe it was Fox, but it was like a really cool experience for me, to be around all those guys. And like when I first got there, I was like really shell shocked and like just like, man, like all these, like I remember watching even in WC watching like Rafael fight, and then like eventually now the guy just won his how many 9 fights out of 10. Like it's insane. Like I feel really like all the guys here at Tiger, I'm sure I'll get shit for this, but like all of them always joked with me like, oh, who you going to name drop now? But like these are people that these were like my training partners, like I was very, very lucky to be in the position that I was to be around all those great minds in MMA and in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and Muay Thai. Like the coach that I had, still I live in the home of Muay Thai, and he's the best pad holder, the best person for MMA striking that I've ever been around, and he knows as much as any Thai person. And I live here with Thais every day. So
well, you see him nowadays, he's in the corner of all those guys.
Yeah, he was with Rafael last week. He cornered me in Phoenix when I fought in Lebanon last year. I flew him there. He'll actually be here this weekend. It's his first time since 1994 was the last time he was in Thailand and Bangkok. And it's the first time that he's coming with his wife. But it's the first time in ages that he's been here, and he's like so excited. He's been like messaging me like, but he's not going to Bangkok. He doesn't want to go there. He's afraid. But he's coming to Phuket with his wife, and he's like telling me, don't tag him in this either, but he's like telling me like all these places he wants to go. And so I'm really excited to like, I'm maybe have him hold pads for me one time if I can get him even to do that, because he's on vacation. But it's just cool to see him. But like these are like, I'm very blessed to be around the people that I've been around, because it's such a small world, and like the MMA, like we talk about the wrestling community, it's so small, but the MMA community is so small, man. Like the people that I've met that know Jukao or know Brian or know so-and-so, it's just so small.
Yeah, I saw that Jukao was down there a couple of weeks ago or last month or something like that.
Yeah, he was here last month. He was in China with Bigfoot for Glory. Shot me a message. He was like, "Hey, bro, I'm coming over." I was like, "Awesome." So it was good to see him. It sucked because I didn't get to hang out with him as much as I'd like to, because my brother got dengue fever and was in the hospital for 5 days. So I didn't really get to see him, but it was nice to have him and spend the small amount of time I did get to see him.
Yeah, I saw him fight in Korea for Road.
Yeah,
before he got signed by the UFC.
When I first met Bruno, that's how I like. When Bruno and I spoke, I was like, "Hey, Jukao?" And he's like, "Hey, Jukabala." And I was like, "Yeah, he was my old coach in jiu-jitsu back in Atlanta." So it's like such a small world like that,
Yeah, it is a trip that like somebody from Brazil will like somehow you have a connection with them through somebody that's Brazilian, but they live in the US.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. All the time it happens. All the time.
Well, it seems like that all those experiences and having those great people around you make you most likely a better coach.
I hope so. I mean, I'm still so young, man, coaching. Like, I aspire to be like a really good coach one day, and I think that I can be. But it's helped me. Like, even still, I still talk to Brian sometimes, or like if I'm having problems, or not like personal problems, but like if I need like advice on something, whether it's coaching someone or coaching or showing something or like doing this, like Brian's the type of guy, man. He's like, if you listen to his last interview with Ariel Helwani about like leaving and everything, he's just, as I like jokingly said it to him, I was like you piss excellence, like he's that type of guy that he really is. Like, what you see is what you get. He's just such a genuine person. He's a very good, he's a man. He's a very good man. He's, like he's just a really good guy. And like, if I could ever like, be as good as he is, or like, I really look up to him, like almost like a big brother. 'Cause he's really not that much older than I am, but in life, he's much older. He's got a family, he's got kids, he's got a house. Like, I remember watching the Super Bowl and stuff like at his house, like him inviting me over and like, thinking to myself, like, and even my roommate coming back, like, man, you watched the Super Bowl with Brian? Like, that's incredible. Like, and that's the same guy, like one of my best friends who took a photo after one of my fights when Brian cornered me, like in some small, like little theater in Atlanta. And my friend was like, had his arm around Brian, and that was like his like profile picture on Facebook for ages. But you know, after a while you take it for granted and you don't think anything about it. But to normal people or fans, it's like a big deal. But he's just like a really, if I ever need advice outside of my father, he's probably one of the first people I would go to, because he's that type of guy. He just makes calculated decisions, and he's a good dude. So
yeah, it's like that's what life is about, man. Meeting people and figuring out who's the right people to be around. And you know,
I've been very, very fortunate to be around the people that I have been around, you know, exposed to. So I'm definitely thankful for that. That's for sure.
Yeah, filtering people also helps, and keeping that bad energy away from you, because a lot of fighters have bad energy around them, man. It doesn't matter what level they are as a fighter or even a coach. You get that bad energy. That bad energy is gonna, you know, materialize into you getting screwed over somehow, some way, right? And it happens all the time to fighters. I always, you know, we're not going to get into detail about it, but you and me know we've seen so many things happen.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
In this MMA world, to fighters,
I feel like
coaches.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot of time, man, like a lot of relationships go like could be a good relationship, you know, but like I feel like a lot of times people, they don't have like, there's miscommunication. I think a lot of times, like there may be, you know, people are good, but there's miscommunication, and they don't like say what they really mean or say how they feel and like get it all out there and like talk about it. And like, I know that sounds kind of like whatever, but like sometimes like people, you know, people have pride and they don't want to put their pride down, and it's just like, oh, well, whatever, fuck him, you know, and that's it, when things could be solved sometimes. But no, I know what you mean. Like people, there are a lot of shitty situations, and people have people around them that they shouldn't, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's having someone in your ear that's, you know, like relating negativity into your mind and kind of like altering your decision making in the wrong way is
for
really
sure
bad, 100%. Man. Like you gotta be good at keeping those people away from you. And I, you know, you look at somebody like John Jones. I think that's his situation in his life, is he doesn't know how to keep those types of people away from him, even though he's messed up a bunch of times already.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
then you guys, and you got people like Brian Stann and even like Daniel Cormier. You could tell Daniel Cormier is kind of like a Brian Stann if you really deep into like how he carries himself. And
I feel bad for Daniel, man, because I think a lot of people I think people don't know like the real, like I don't know Daniel. Like I love him because he's a former wrestler, and I like the way that he fights. Like he's not just a wrestler, you know. Like that dude can scrap. But I agree with you in that sense. I think that he is very similar. But I feel like he gets the shit end of the stick, you know, like people are like always calling him like whining or complaining, and like I feel bad for him in that sense. But no, I think he's a good dude too. Like he just seems like a good family guy that like, you know, he cares about his kids and his wife and just wants to train and make money and do his thing. But he seems like a nice guy. Like obviously we don't know the guy personally, but that's and through the people that I'm friends with that know him personally, he seems like a really good guy. So
I love him, Rogan, and Anik together. I think that is the best commentary team that the UFC has ever had, and they should never change it.
Well, I think if Stan was still there, it'd be gangster.
Well, Stan, of course, you know, Stan, if he was there.
Yeah, but Stan used to get so much shit. I remember messaging him one time and just being like, hey, like, because I think I saw something on Twitter, somebody like trying to bash him, and I remember sending him a message just like, or maybe we were talking, I can't remember, and I was just like, hey, by the way, I think that you're a very, like, because I love Joe Rogan, but I don't like Joe Rogan commentating. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't. He's been okay, but sometimes, like, some of the things that, like, I think just some of the time in MMA commentating, it makes me, like, and look, I'll be the first to admit, like, I don't think that, I would like to think I'd be a good commentator, but probably not, you know? It's something that, like Brian was, like, I remember him, like, telling me like takes notes for it and all the homework he does. He's messaged me numerous times about guys that have like Zubair Tukhugov, Maribek Taisumov, like guys that I know that I've trained with or coached. Like he's messaged me asking me about them. Alex Volkanovski, Abel Trujillo, a guy I wrestled with in college, like he's asked me like personal questions like, hey, what can you tell me about them like that, or Dennis, like that normal people wouldn't know. So he really did like the homework, you know, to really be like a good commentator and get to know the athlete. For me, it's probably not something that I would do, or I would have to really work at doing that kind of stuff, but that's, you know, his military background. But sometimes I feel like Joe Rogan is biased when he speaks about the fighters, and it drives me insane. But I like Joe Rogan a lot. I like his podcast. I think he's got a great perspective on life. But sometimes I do get a little, and I do like his commentating, but I do get annoyed sometimes. And I think the biggest thing that does it for me is like when people commentate MMA, and it's not even their fault, but like, and they talk about Muay Thai, like, oh, he's got that Muay Thai clinch. And like, if you go to a Muay Thai fight in Thailand and you see someone grab somebody's head like this, it's like 1 out of 10 times, because it doesn't happen, because it's just not clinching. It's very hard to grab somebody's head, but it's just like small things like that annoy me, but it's really not their fault. Like, but when people do talk about Muay Thai, it does drive me insane, because they should come to Thailand. But no, I think those three together are good. They're good commentators.
Well,
obviously I'm biased to Brian.
Being knowledgeable about the sport is important, but also getting the people hyped and getting the people like
right. Which they do.
The moment is also important, and I
which
think those
is something.
guys do.
If I was a commentator, I'd probably be bad at it, because Jeff, the video guy, like for our barbecue beat, we have a barbecue every month at Tiger, and they have like smoker Muay Thai and MMA fights. Really not Muay Thai or MMA fights very often, mostly Muay Thai. But if there are, I usually ref them. And he's like, can you show more emotion? Can you jump in to like break them up? Because he always says I just kind of walk in. I'm like, hey, okay. Probably after I've had too many whiskeys to drink. But no, but I think if I was commentating, I would speak like I'm speaking now. It's not like I'm getting like, you know, extra enthused and into it. But it's a hard job. It's not a job, because whether you're the commentator, hell, even a coach nowadays in the UFC, like the times that I've cornered in the UFC, I'm very like. No, I wouldn't say that I'm careful of what I say, but I'm like I have to catch myself sometimes if I'm like, fuck, or if I, you know, because you're being recorded. Like you're always, there's so many critics, whether you're the coach, whether you're the commentator, whether you're Mark Goddard, who's just come under fire. Like you're always going to be, people are always going to like look at you and critique you. And for me to be a commentator, I don't think that I would like. I think I could do okay with it, but I wouldn't be like. I'm not anywhere near those guys. Like, I would probably start commentating at Full Metal Dojo, get my feet wet. You know,
yeah, it's harder than people think, because
for sure, especially the homework that goes into it.
Yeah, you gotta be very careful of what you're saying, and in a way not to offend somebody, and also say something that's wrong. Because if you say something wrong, they're going to be on you like white on rice. Man.
Like and MMA fans, bro, they're terrible. Like MMA fans are the worst.
I think MMA has the most trolls, to be honest with you.
Has to. And it's probably like, I'd like to see where all the countries we're from, like America, obviously, because they're probably the worst fans out of all. America, England, Australia.
And Russia.
And Russia. I don't even know what they're saying, but like you think about like Asian fans are the best, in my opinion. They're the best.
They don't really troll anybody. That's the thing.
They don't troll, and when you fight in one of those countries, or when you fight in Korea is pretty like cool, I think. But like fighting in Japan, or like I fought in China numerous times, but Japan, China, they cheer and stuff, but like they really like. There's no booing like when you're on your feet. There's no booing on the mat like or on the ground. Like everyone, you know, they enjoy it, especially the Japan fans, and the Korean fans are great as well. Like all the Road FCs that I've been to or Battlefield, like they've all been great shows.
Yeah, you don't ever really hear any booing at all.
Yeah, there's not, because they're just like they're appreciative and they understand, but like. I don't even remember what fight was on the other day, and you could just hear the whole place going crazy, and they're just like booing and stuff. It was insane.
What about when TJ Dillashaw was fighting and they're all like in unison, fuck you, fuck you, the crowd?
That's like, I mean, but like, imagine like fighting in one of those like, imagine being TJ and winning. Like, what an environment that was to fight in and to overcome, you know?
I love TJ, man. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world.
Oh, I do too. I like Cody better than him, but I think that you can't take anything away from that guy. I mean, he is one of the best.
And just all around too, not just like in one discipline, because he's a wrestler.
Yes, for any guy, like for him, for DC, for Woodley, like, and a bunch of other ones, man, that's a testament to those guys. Like, because think about how many. Did you hear the podcast where not the podcast, but the Chael Sonnen interview when he talks about Johnny Hendricks and he's like, it's no knock on Johnny.
Yeah.
Did you hear that one?
Yeah.
That he started depending on his right hand and he got away from, like, you know, the 1, the 2, the 3 scrambles.
Yeah.
But it's true, man. It's so true, because I think for me, I still do a lot of takedowns when I do fight. But when I train, I don't ever shoot. Ever. I never shoot. Very seldom do I shoot. And it's something that I can, but when I do fight, like, I do shoot. But I also, on a negative side, sometimes I get into a tendency of like just playing around like I'm sparring in practice. And I can understand where you get away from the things that, you know, like for me, the moving and movement and stuff like that. So I can understand like what he means about like just you get this right hand, you get a couple knockouts and you get away from what you're good at. I can understand that. And how he says about constantly in the room, like you have to drill it and drill it and drill it more and constantly be doing this stuff. So I understand and I agree with what he was saying in that point. So
I think Chael, if he was like a freak
athlete, just kicking more knowledge.
Yeah, I think if he was a freak athlete, his mental game is so strong.
And I think so too.
If he had that physical talent that say like a Johnny Hendricks had or something like that, he would have been so much better as a fighter.
Oh yeah.
Even though he made it to he almost beat Anderson Silva, you know what I mean? Like that's even crazy to even think about.
That's insane. And I, like, now that I've like, you know, I've been in the sport longer and I really like, and I like Chael even when he fought Anderson, but Anderson it's not the same anymore, but he was like, I loved him. I loved his style. Like that's how I wanted to be. And he was like, you know, he still is, I think, one of the greatest of all time. But
yeah, of course.
Clearly things have been a little bit tarnished recently.
Shady.
Yeah. But even at that, because I watched the documentary, the Like Water documentary, whatever it was that he put out, like even after Chael did that, I was convinced. I was like, he was injured. You can tell in the documentary, you know that he was injured. Yeah, his ribs, he can't do anything. But still, like, man, for the guy to get the shit kicked out of him for 5 rounds and then throw up a submit, like, I've been there firsthand. I know exactly what that's like to win 14 and a half minutes of a fight. In his case, 20 ever how many minutes of a fight, and then 24 and a half minutes, and then to get into a submission and lose in the end, it fucking sucks. And so I know like how that feels. Obviously not because the degree is completely different of what it was for. But like now that I understand, I'm like, I would go with Chael. But then you look at the second fight, and Anderson came out like a G, you know, and he did his thing. But and I was also the same guy, like such an Anderson fan that I thought he could still beat Weidman if they fought again. But
at the same, you know, at that time,
not now.
Yeah, at that time, I respected Anderson. You know, like I thought, man, Anderson, he's the shit. Like he's so fucking good. But when he fought Chael the first time, I was rooting for Chael to win.
Yeah,
because I was just like, Anderson needs to lose. That's what I was thinking in my mind, because he hadn't lost yet in the UFC. You gotta think. I think he won like,
I
don't even know how many times, like 10 times in a row or whatever. breaking records, and something inside me was like, man, Chael, I'm rooting for you, man. You got to do it, because he was getting inside of his head, and I don't know if you get inside their head, but
he was such like that was when like the American Gangster was born. Like think about him talking, like think about like how like you talk about being a storyteller. Like I remember him being like, maybe was it Errol Hawani? Just talk about it, like interviewing him. And he was like, I think it was Ariel, and he was like talking about like Minotauro throwing like bananas at the bus or something like that.
Feeding the bus carrots or something like that.
Yeah, like there's just the most fabricated, like ridiculous stories that he would make up, but like so a lot of people probably believe those stories.
That's why I think he did it, is because some people might watch it and really believe
100%. Like some of the stupid fans out there really believe that shit. But like, it was just like, so like if you didn't think about like this guy really threw a banana at a bus, like the way that Chael said it, was like conviction, and he believed it, and he's just like, he really is, like you said, a super good storyteller.
Yeah,
that's funny.
I loved the build up. I think that fight had the best build up ever of any fight, and Chael made it.
I could agree with that.
And he did it by himself. He didn't even need Anderson.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then Fought John Jones talked his way into that.
Yeah.
What a legend.
And almost beat John Jones.
What a legend.
Because remember his toe snapped in half?
Yeah.
And if they would have found that, he would have won that fight.
That's insane.
But at that time, I think even like the newer generation fans, they weren't even watching at that time, so they have no idea what Chael has done in the promotion.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a legend, man.
I think he's the one who actually got paid the highest pay-per-views for not even being the champion.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, like he was the one, man. He's kind of like the precursor of the Conor McGregor.
For sure.
Because who came
probably
before him?
Like, if he would have delivered, if he would have had better luck and delivered like Conor's delivered, he would have probably been the original Conor McGregor, you know?
Oh, for sure. And I don't know, man. It's, to me, I think Conor McGregor is something's going on with him, man. I don't think he's going off the rails a little bit, because those things that he's done recently, like jump into the cage, and he's not even fighting, and it's at Bellator.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Promotion. I read, like, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read. Did you read it? Mark Goddard's thing?
No, I didn't read it.
Like his statement, I skimmed through it tonight. But yeah, it was kind of odd. Like,
Mark Goddard's statement was odd?
No. The whole thing with Conor, like Mark Goddard was like, he basically, the part that I read that like made sense to me, or like I guess I could see, he said it was so loud that he didn't hear the bell, but he thought he had heard the bell, and he, in his head, he was like, oh, the time's up or whatever. And then I skimmed through, but obviously the bell hadn't rung, and he went over to break Conor up and say, the bell hasn't rung, like, you need to go back to your corner, whatever, or your fighter needs to go back to your corner, or something of that nature. And that's when like all the drama kicked off.
Yeah, and he slapped some official.
Yeah, I saw that.
And weird shit. Like if you're a sober, normal person,
right, bro, it's one thing
to like that.
Yeah, like even like you thought the bell rung, you thought your guy won, you jump in the cage, okay. But
he's not even a corner.
Right, which is crazy, because at like Full Metal Dojo, you could get away with something like that.
Yeah.
But like at a show like that, come on, like you shouldn't be get away with that, regardless of who you are. But like, not only that, like that's okay, Conor, don't be an asshole, slap on the wrist. But to hit an official in the face, like slap him or whatever it was, that's insane.
Hey, what about the new? Did you see the rumors about Nate Diaz versus Tyron Woodley?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's the biggest shit going down right now. People, it's not official, but they're saying like 219, Woodley versus Nate Diaz. I'm gonna say it right now. Nate Diaz gets fucking busted, dude. Like, it's gonna be bad. I believe.
I don't know if I think he's definitely gonna lose.
Think of when Nate Diaz fought Rory McDonald.
That's what I was thinking about, like, because, man, he gets cut easy and, like, bleeds easy and stuff like that. Like, but, yo, I think Woodley, like, that's my boy. Like, not really my boy, but he's a wrestler, and I like him. And I think he gets a lot of hate. But
yeah, he's another one.
I like Woodley a lot, and I think he's a smart fighter. But, and I think he's gonna beat Diaz, but Diaz is an OG. Like, he's gonna be giving him the finger and like shouting and like.
Oh, of course, the fight is awesome.
Like, anything that he does, there is no act about it. Like, he is hood.
Yeah.
He's OG. Like, he don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's a great fight. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make any sense. But that's not what the UFC is about anymore. It's not about making sense. It's about making dollars.
Yes. And off subject, not really off subject. Did you see the Congress meeting with the Ali Act thing?
Yeah, like some congressman was talking mad shit about the UFC.
Yeah, he was like 3-0 MMA. I don't know if that was pro who he fought or if it was amateur, whatever. But I thought it was kind of cool. But I don't think really anything's going to come of it. They're just so big, man.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. Like, there's going to be no union. There's none of that shit's going to ever happen.
No.
It's not going to happen, man. It's too hard to make it happen, too.
Yeah.
Just too hard.
Fighters.
And that's what sucks. It sucks at the same time.
Fighters will just keep fighting for pennies
But I think the pay will get better as time goes.
Maybe like in the big promotions, but I feel like the small I don't even know how much a normal fight is in America anymore. My first MMA fight, I made $800 to show, and I think $500 or $600 for winning.
Fuck.
Yeah, think about that.
And then you're training like a few months to get ready for it.
Yeah, and I paid Manu $500 for a month of like pad work, like 3-4 times a week just for me, which was completely worth it, like 100% worth it. And that's like, I tell people now, like, I would never take that back. Like, I would do that again because I know how much better it's made me, and how much it's helped me as a coach, like the things that I've learned and stuff like that. And it's about investing in yourself. But like, I was having a conversation with Glenn Sparv today, which I got time for that guy. I love him. But just talking about like fighters, and like he said to me, like sometimes I hear fighters bitching about like how much they're making. Like, yeah, what do you think? You're gonna get paid a lot of money? You're nobody. Like, fight and make yourself somebody. But just like stuff like that made me laugh and made me think like, yeah, you got a point. But
yeah,
I think that
he seems like he don't cut the shit. He don't cut the shit. He just like,
I like Glenn, man. I've gotten closer to him and spent more time with him, and like Glenn's the type of guy is like, I don't like, before he was fighting in I think Australia or whatever, or maybe it was, I can't remember where it was, and I was like, Glenn, you all right? You got a corner? Like, you are, because I still at that point didn't like. Now we've gotten closer, and I didn't know him that well at that point. He's like, no, I'm okay. He's like, I really enjoy fight week. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I don't have to be around people. I get to go by myself, and I don't have to be around with someone. I always know somebody around wherever I'm fighting that I know that can corner me. And I was like, oh, that's what a ledge. Like, it's no big deal. You just go, you scrap, and that's it.
He's an old school brawler. That's the old school style.
He's funny, man. I really like Glenn. He is a beast. He's an animal.
All right, man. Let's shut it down. It was good talking to you. A lot of good wrestling convo.
Yeah.
Next time,
some old throwback George days.
Yeah, that for real. That's what this episode is gonna be called. Throwback George. Episode I think 53. Throwback George. But yeah, eventually, I want to get your brother on, and we should have one. You, me, your brother. And
yeah, for sure.
Talk wrestling. I just want to talk wrestling. I just want to talk about like,
we can do that.
And like who was the main dudes, and like who are the legends, and because a lot of people don't know. And wrestling is deeply rooted, like I said earlier, in MMA.
Yeah, for sure.
So you should learn about it, and I want to know.
For sure. No, I'll talk to him. He's and I'll show you right now with Tai Tuivasa. So he fights this weekend. He's been helping him, and then he'll be back later this month, and then we'll get him on.
For sure. Oh, he'll be in the corner then.
I believe he's cornering him. Yeah.
So if everybody's watching the UFC this weekend, it's this weekend. So this weekend, look in the corner for Tai.
For the little
monster.
George.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He is
a monster. You're gonna see the beautiful blonde hair, wave back. You see that? That's him, Frank.
Yeah. After he knocks his dude out, we'll get him on.
For sure. All right, man. Peace.
Peace.